The Pinwheel Forest in Unova is home to a large variety of Pokémon and some weird people.
You don't want to scare the forest Pokémon, do you?
I have a lifelong dream, as of 6 months ago, to beat every Pokémon region using only Mons from each forest. So today, I'll play through Pokémon Black with only the Pinwheel Forest Mons, in addition to a few other rules. Before we begin, which is your favorite Pokémon here? Our journey starts not in the forest, like some Tarzan wannabe, but at my house. How original. For my fake starter, I choose Snivy. It's the most forest one available. I beat up my two friends, making a giant mess in the process. But hey, that's what moms are for, to clean stuff up. Don't tell my mom I said that. My reward for being irresponsible is getting a free Pokédex and a town map, so it pays to not clean your room. I clearly can't get any of these Route 1 Mons, something that Bianca doesn't seem to understand. I'm going for quality here, not quantity. Some unimportant Pokemon liberation stuff later, I get to Route 2, where I still can't catch a new Mon. But hey, I get some Air Jordans, letting me run like Mike. It's not till I reach the Dream Yard where I can finally get my official starter, Panpour. Goodbye Snivy, you fake forest dweller. My water monkey makes short work of Charon's pig, and his cat, neither of which are Pinwheel Forest worthy creatures. This brings me to the first gym leader, of whom there are 3. Because of the starter I chose, I end up fighting Chili. His first Pokemon is a Lillipup. Panpour starts with Leer to lower its defense, before scratching a few times till it falls. Now, the Fire Monkey takes less from Water Gun than I'd expected, surviving multiple hits, and even burns off my Oran Berry. How rude. But in the end, my water put it out, getting the very first badge. I can't move on yet, not until I encounter Team Plasma again. They're picking on a gross little fetus thing that I honestly don't care too much about, but I need access to this dark grass patch right here. Because in the rustling grass here, I find Audino. This girl can be found in so many places in Unova, trying, and failing, to hide in the rustling grass. She's not my favorite by any means, but I still could use another Pokemon here. Even her. On Route 3, Charon wants to battle yet again, but now I have 2 Pokemon as well, with a third on the way as soon as I knock this kid out. More Team Plasma stuff happens, and I know I should probably help out this kid with his stolen Pokemon or whatever, but there's a much more important thing to do first. Run around aimlessly in the grass on the lookout for a Pidgey wannabe, who just so happens to also reside in the forest. With a third Pokemon attached to my belt, now I can waste some time saving this kid, or whatever it was. I don't know, I wasn't really paying attention. In Nacrene City, Charon tells me to get some fighting Mons to help beat Bianca. I don't really think I need anyone else, but since he mentioned it, let's get some more Pokemon. Now, the Pinwheel Forest is unique, in that it has 2 separate maps. The interior and the outsides. While I can't enter the forest proper just yet, I can still catch Pokemon on the outskirts, like this Tympole. Since Charon suggests I get a fighting type, I show him by getting 2. This ugly one, and a Sock. My Sock uses his stinky feet to double kick N's Pokemon into oblivion. That's what you get for blocking the gym, dude. Bianca's gym forces me to read some books, which is not what I signed up for at all. If I wanted to read, I wouldn't be playing video games. Then again, that doesn't really work with a text-heavy Pokemon game now, does it? Either way, I struggle through the library and begin the Bianca battle. I lead with Panpour to do absolutely nothing. Great job there, man. With him gone, the single-stage Sock just kicks his way through her team, easily winning the second badge. But I didn't need Charon's help for this, okay? I could have done it on my own. But you need help remembering to subscribe to the channel, so here's your reminder. I get the badge and see Team Plasma steal a Dragonite Skull. Naturally, I give chase directly into my forest home. Berg and the better Berg, aka me, split up, with the lesser Berg, him, going the easy way, which is fine by me. I don't want any negativity in my forest, so I viciously beat up Team Plasma and take the skull back. Rather than arrest them for committing an actual crime, these 2 gym leaders, who are the arbiters of the law, decide to just let them go free. Which, just between you and me, is exactly the right thing to do if you want to encourage more crime. Anyway, with that filth out of my forest, and Team Plasma too, I try to enter the restricted section with higher level Pokemon, but am stopped by an old fart. But I want the fierce Pokemon in the back. That's why I'm here. Okay, let's just settle for the gentle Mons instead. Like this grass bug, and poison bug, and grass non-bug. Those are all of the normal walking encounters, but there are a few more rustling grass ones, and these take forever. Mainly because Audino keeps popping up. I already got one. Eventually, I get a Pansage from the grass, and a Pansear too. With all the wild forest mons caught, I have 11 to choose from, though I will only pick 6 and stick with that team for the rest of the video. Experience doesn't grow on trees, you know. Naturally, I keep my starter, and fill up my barrel of monkeys with the other 2. Now, you can call me elitist if you want, but I strongly believe that interior Pinwheel Forest Pokémon are more foresty than those living on the outside. Since I only want the best of the best, I will not use any of the inferior external mons. This means that I have a major weakness to both fire and flying types. But hey, sometimes being right isn't easy. Our forest home connects to this awesome Skyarrow drawbridge that still looks pretty cool, even all these years later. Though it's a bit less awe-inspiring when I immediately have to backtrack to get a quick claw from this hiker. On the 3rd crossing, I'm fed up with this stupid long bridge. In Pokemon's version of New York, I get flashed by a stranger in a dark alley, just like the real New York. Once again, I can't do a gym battle because Team Plasma is doing some plasma type nonsense. And also, Berg just lets them get away. Gah indeed. Time to teach this pushover gym leader a lesson after getting one of my all-time favorite items, Eviolite. That defense boost is awesome and is immediately put to good use. Not on my bird though, he doesn't need it. Panpour could have used it to beat Dwebble, but I assumed he didn't need it either. Tranquil picks up the slack once he falls, and sacrifices himself to leave Annie. Finally, this brings out Pansear, who does have the Eviolite, letting him quickly defeat Berg's last Pokemon. Eat that, you fake forest trainer. He might pretend to be one with the forest, but he's not like me. Next, I defeat an old janitor who's just trying to do his job and take his experience share, an item that I really need for this run. As I'm leaving New York, Bianca appears again to have a battle. And fighting indoors, it's cool guys, she checked. Though consent normally requires the person involved too, namely me. Toxic Bug tries to get some experience, but it doesn't work out so well. Aside from that loss at the start though, everyone else does really well defeating Bianca with minimal effort, which leads us right into a Sharon battle. I'm just gonna say it, there are far too many rival battles in this game. Tranquil, who is quickly becoming my ace, takes out most of his Pokemon, leaving just a tiny bit of experience for Sewaddle, who soon evolves, becoming a bit less useless. A Nimbasan daycare worker is being picked on by Team Plasma, who I defeat for the experience. I'm rewarded with a bike, because as everyone knows, daycare workers have extra bikes, for some reason. I take a break from gym training to dress up Toxic Bug, making him the cutest, albeit brutally aggressive bug you ever did see. At this point, Bianca tries to get me to take her side against her very reasonable father. No 14-year-old should be gallivanting around the world without adult supervision. But sure, somehow he's the bad guy? Pokemon logic. Which is the same thing that tells me to get on a Ferris wheel with some creepy stranger, so we're up high and all alone. At least he waits till we're back on solid ground to fight. I win, thanks in no small part to a certain bird, but now my other freeloading Mons need to pick up the slack. At least that's the hope. Alessa's electric types are a pretty good bird counter. Pansear Flame Bursts the second Emolga as the first one Volt switches away. They swap back, knocking out Pansear, so I'll try to use Tranquil anyway, I suppose. He has Eviolite, survives a Volt Switch, and returns the same Emolga who was hit earlier for the knockout. I then sacrifice Panpour to another Volt Switch, as Alessa brings out her Zebstrika, who is much less likely to Volt Switch. Not that he needs it. Between Leech Seed and Dig from Pansage, he almost defeats it, but Alessa heals a few times. When he falls, I'm down to 2 Pokemon. Both are weak to fire and flying. We talked about that, remember? Anyway, Swadloon protects for a bit to try and stay alive with Leech Seed, but being 4 times weak to fire, that clearly doesn't work. Venipede does protect Zebstrika to death, but don't forget, Alessa still has a fully healed Emolga. My now not so cute bug clearly can't win. meaning we have our very first blackout. We actually got pretty far without losing though, so I'm not mad about it. A few blackouts later, my new strategy works perfectly. This time, Tranquil does not have Eviolite, but he can still survive a Volt Switch, albeit barely, to return the second Emolga. Then, his Quick Claw activates as he returns again for the knockout. He still falls to the first Emolga, and again, Panpour is sacrificed to bring out Zebstrika. But this time, Pansage has the Eviolite. Flame Charge still does a decent chunk of damage, but Leech Seed and Dig keep him healthy enough to win that round. The first Emolga is also Leech Seeded, ensuring my victory, even if it still does cost a number of Pokemon and I have to resort to being cheap by protecting. What do you think happens next as I leave Nimbasa City with my new gym badge? Another rival battle, of course. It's not like I just had two of them back to back or anything. Swadloon defeats his Dark Cat, but as I pivot to Tranquil to take on his lesser Tranquil, that bird gets a double air/crit, knocking me right out. Well, that's not fair. I still manage to defeat it, Pansage too, but then Pignite starts a rollout. Between that and Flame Charge, Cheren, of all people, gets me down to my very last Pokemon. At least Toxic Bug can protect, resetting the rollout counter, and wins via Leech Seed knockout. That was surprisingly difficult, to be honest. Thankfully, Cheren heals me before the all-too-important toddler battle, at which point, Clay deems us worthy enough to enter his city by lowering the drawbridge. Thanks? So he has just total control over who enters this city? As an unelected official, that seems like an abuse of power to me. Speaking of, he refuses to have a gym battle because of some nonsense that is not my fault in the slightest. You kind of suck. You know that, right, Clay? Once I've done all the work finding and beating up Team Plasma, Clay comes in to take the glory. But for once, these bad guys are actually arrested, so that's an improvement. You still suck, Clay. Though I could probably have forced Swadloon to like me earlier, it's best to let these things run their natural course and not be a creep. Either way, Swadloon evolves into his final form, just in time for the Clay battle. His Krokorok does nothing except boost Leavanny's attack, which is fine by me. Unfortunately, Excadrill knows Rock Slide, which ends my bug's life. For the Steel Groundmon, Panpour barely survives a slash and knocks out Clay's ace with a super lucky Scald Burn. That was perfect. Instead of letting him die, I pivot to Pansage to tank Palpitoad's Bulldoze and respond with a single Seed Bomb for the win, earning me yet another badge. Which of course means it's time for yet another rival battle. I'm not going to go through this whole battle. I'm so tired of this second-rate rival. Suffice it to say though, I win without too much trouble. Right before facing the flying gym leader Skyla, my flying Pokemon evolves to his final form, which is quite the appropriate time if you ask me. I lead with Pansear, who Rock Tombs her Swoobat, slowing it down. He tried to hit again, but was flinched. Just for funs, I then pivot to Scolipede, who is also fully evolved, to defeat the Bat. He is almost able to beat Unpheasant as it Razor Winds, but not quite. My bird would return, then easily defeats hers. Swanna is equally defeated with 2 returns, proving what I've been saying basically all along. My bird is actually pretty good. His lightweight back must be hurting from carrying my team this whole video. Need more proof? Well, lucky for you, and unlucky for me, there's obviously another rival battle just around the corner. Once again, I start with Pansear to try and Rock Tomb Cheren's also evolved bird, and it doesn't go well. Cue my bird to return his, fly on Pignite, return Lipard, and again fly the Simisage. Unpheasant has never been my favorite regional bird, not by a long shot, but this run might actually be changing my opinion on him. Let's see if he can keep it up. With the ability to surf, I return to our forest home, not for the last time, actually, and the old fart must have died because he's no longer blocking the way. This lets me enter the previously forbidden forest and get one more encounter, a Basculin, who does live in this forest. There is another encounter I can get, but I need to find and run away from Cobalion first. This somehow makes Virizion, another member of the Sword of Justice, appear right in my forest, which naturally means I catch it, after countless Ultra Balls. Now, I don't typically use legendaries in runs like this, but since I have the option, and let's be honest here, Scolipede has done less than nothing, I replace him. Sorry man, you just couldn't cut it here. At this point, you may be wondering, when the heck are these monkeys going to evolve? Which is a phrase I never thought I'd say. Well, 2 of them are actually quite good physical attackers, and I'm waiting for a specific move they'll learn in a few more levels. Pansear's nature, however, makes him a special attacker, so I decide that he can finally evolve just in time for an ice battle. And, just to make sure things go smoothly, he starts with Sunny Day. At which point, all of Bryce's ice melts, giving me the easiest gym battle so far. Which is surprising, because this guy is a ninja with extraordinary senses, and the uncommon ability in Pokemon to actually do things for himself without always relying on his slaves. Monster friends. Looks like Team Plasma is getting to me after all. I get to the top of this giant tower just in time to see N befriend his own legendary. Which is fine, I've already got one, so I don't care all that much. After learning Crunch at level 43, which is probably not even worth waiting this long to be honest, my 2 remaining monkeys finally evolve. And now my team is complete. Just in time for another rival battle. Who could have guessed? Like the previous Bianca skirmish, I don't want to spend any real time on this, as I beat her Pokemon easily enough. For the final time, I might add, she really is the worst. And then, it's time for another ridiculously long bridge. Why does Unova need so many of these things? Across the bridge waits Drayden, the final gym leader. I start with Unpheasant to return his fracture. He dragon dances, and I respond with a few feather dances to make sure this little dragon doesn't sweep my team. After some heals, the bird wins. Druddigan is then returned as well. Haxorus also begins to dance, which is a bit scary to be honest, but thanks to my bird dance, his attack is lowered a bit. This allows Virizion to tank a few hits, winning the battle and earning the final badge. With that, we head straight to the Pokemon League on the search for Alder. Rather, I would have liked to, but Charon's stupid self shows up yet again on another bridge and thinks he can finally defeat me, even though he's lost every single time. But hey, I'm sure this time it'll be different, right? Simipour easily defeats his bird, but Simisear somehow fails to KO Charon's grass monkey, and that funky monkey defeats his fire counterpart. That's no fair. It doesn't really matter though, as my ace, Unpheasant, picks it off, as well as the giant fire pig, and Liepard too. I then waste several minutes of my life going through one badge checkpoint after another. Why don't they just have one guy check all of the badges? That would be so much easier. I eventually make it through that time-wasting nonsense, and Victory Road 2, beginning our Elite Four gauntlet. I'll start at the bottom left and just work my way clockwise. Simipour has an Expert Belt and Crunch, the move I held off on evolving him for so long. In the end, that too was a waste of time, as he can't even beat a Cofagrigus. Alright then. My other crunching monkey can though. For Chandelure, I'm afraid I need to make a sacrifice. Goodbye, Leafy Bug. That allows Simisear a clean swap to Rock Slide. Her 2 final ghosts, Golork and then Jellicent, are both weak to grass, making that a relatively simple battle, even if it didn't start off great. Next is tall, dark, and not handsome, Grimsley. This time, Virizion has an Expert Belt, and once again, it leaves something to be desired. At least it does beat Scrafty in 2 hits, before getting Aerial Aced by Liepard. Somehow, Leavanny survives that flying move, beating the Dark Leopard. He does a tiny bit of damage to Bisharp, making way for a 4 times effective Brick Break from Simipour, who redeems himself from the previous battle, also knocking out Krokorok after surviving an Earthquake, and wasting several heals. Next in line is Caitlyn, the Psychic Lady. Leavanny starts off with X-Scissors, defeating Ryu Nicholas and healing a tad with Shell Bell. Sigilyph easily defeats Virizion, allowing me to swap to Unpheasant, who is also defeated. Huh, didn't expect that one. Simipour gets revenge though. He could have beaten Gothitelle too, if it weren't for an unlucky Thunderbolt paralysis. Well, that's too bad. Still, Leavanny finishes it off with another bug move. Thanks to that Shell Bell healing, he also survives Musharna's Psychic with 10 HP, beating the 3rd Elite Four member. Last, and certainly least, we have Marshall. I'm starting with Virizion, who does remarkably poorly against this human-like Mon. For a legendary, you're acting pretty just dairy right now. When it falls, Simisear needs to pick up the slack. He is outsped and can't break Sock Sturdy. Leavanny can, and surprisingly actually defeats Sock. He even hurts Conkeldurr a bit before getting rocked again. Now it is time for my bird. A single fly takes out Conkeldurr, and then Unfezant survives Mienshau's rock slide and flies it as well for the win. Now in a normal Pokemon game, I would then face the champion, but N beat me to it. Before battling him, we are subjected to a ridiculously long cutscene of a giant castle somehow popping out of the ground like a daisy. And it wouldn't be complete without a freaking ton of more bridges. What'd I tell ya? Unova is bridge obsessed. On my way to N, I take a slight detour to pillage his room for one last rare candy. Since we're coming to an end here, it's time to use my rare candy stash to make my Mons slightly less underleveled. We'll see if it helps. I encounter N and his dragon, and am forced to interact with this other dragon. I'm obviously not going to use him, but catching him in a single quick ball is pretty legit. No, I don't want him on my team. He's no Forest Mon. Unfortunately, I still have to fight N's giant dragon. Simisage starts with Leech Seed, but never gets a chance to dig. Virizian's Sacred Sword is incredibly weak. He still gets Zekrom down pretty low thanks to Leech Seed, but can't quite make it. A Quick Claw Simisear can though. He is stoned by Caracosta, and already I'm down to half my team. The Water Turtle is then defeated. N's Klinklang is an imposter trying to flamethrower Water Monkey, but N still gets the last laugh. Unfezant is then crit focus blasted, leaving it all up to Leavanny, who promptly falls to a 4x flamethrower. Well, that kind of sucks. It was our first loss since Alessa, so I think we still did pretty good. Next battle, I get to Archeops and still lose. After several more losses and attempts, it's now time to break out the awesome held items. I chose to not use these in the Elite Four because they weren't necessary, but they are now apparently. Let's see if it helps. This time, after Leech Seed, Simisage runs away in place of Leavanny. He survives a Giga Impact, doing minor damage with X-Scissor, but healing with both Shell Bell and a Leech Seed. After a Swords Dance, Leafy Bug actually beats the dragon, and already we're off to a much better start. Fake Klinklang again knocks it out, but this time Virizion has a Choice Scarf to outspeed. It still takes 2 hits, unfortunately, but that works out well enough. Simisear is then poised to melt a double scoop ice cream, or not. Didn't see that coming. Simipour melts it with some water, running away to Simisage on the real Klang's Thunderbolt, who is hyper beamed before he can do anything. Well, okay. My Choice Scarf Legendary defeats the Gears with a Sacred Sword, and then he also outspeeds Archeops, but doesn't do enough to activate Defeatist. Dang it, that was the whole point of it having a Choice Scarf. With only 2 Mons left, I don't think I'm going to win this time either, since Archeops is fast and can one-shot either of my Pokemon. Unless Stone Age misses, and Archeops is Feather Danced. Okay. Unfezant has Choice Band, so even though I'd like to now do some damage, he Feather Dances one more time right into the grave. His sacrifice lets Simipour easily tank in Acrobatics, responding with Surf. Too bad N has one more Pokemon, Caracosta, who also misses a Stone Edge. This is why you shouldn't rely on 80% accurate moves, and come on. Meaning that Simipour is the sole survivor of what henceforth shall be called the N Massacre. After the battle, he gets real close to my face, apparently not understanding the concept of personal space. He also didn't understand that his whole life was a lie. Gestis was just using him to get power because that's what bad guys do. My Pokemon are healed for this fight, but I can't change their order or held items. Simisage again starts off with Leech Seed, which apparently is all he's really good for. He is Toxic in return, and does eventually defeat Cofagrigus. His reward? A freaking Fire Blast to the face by Hydreigon. Hardly seems worth it. Virizian's Sacred Sword, once again, does less than I had hoped. What exactly is the point of having a legendary if they can't one-shot everything? I decide to pivot to Simisear to take a Fire Blast. Not only does Quick Claw activate, he also gets a crit Brick Break, knocking out Hydreigon. That was pretty lucky. Fire Monkey is then earthquaked to death. Leavanny takes a risk to Swords Dance, and it worked out okay. Even with that attack boost though, Eelektross survives Leaf Blade and Acrobatics, bringing me down to 3 Pokemon. Since Eelektross isn't too quick, Unpheasant outspeeds to return it. Now Bisharp is 4 times weak to fighting, so for once, Sacred Sword does what I expected. To break out of the Choice Scarf selected move, Unpheasant reappears, dealing some damage, and actually defeats Seismitoad, which is not what I had planned, but I should have, because that bird has carried so much of this run. Now that we've beaten the game, we are kind of like the champions. I don't know, it's a weird scenario in Unova, but before you leave, there is one more very important thing I need to do. Back in my home, I now have 2 Mons. And I don't mean that in the month of June type of way. No, I literally have the same mom twice. And this whole time my mom was okay with having a conversation with a dude dressed up as her? That's pretty weird. Anyway, Looker, for whatever reason, gives me a Super Rod. Now Unova has much less emphasis on fishing compared to previous regions. But with this rod, I return one last time to the Pinwheel Forest and fish half a dozen times, till I find the real final encounter, Goldeen. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a pretty depressing last Pokemon. Oh well, I still have to catch it. And with that, I have officially beaten Pokémon Black using only Mons from the Pinwheel Forest. With the variety of types those monkeys gave me, I expected them to be a bit more useful in this video. Instead, I had to rely on the bird for practically everything. And don't even get me started on the supposed legendary Verizia. I'm not gonna lie, not a big fan of that thing right now. The next run in this series will take place in the Santaloon Forest. I hope to see you in the next region.